Many scientists saying it is now settled science that the Earth is warming. We know climate change is taking place. The question is, how much do we contribute and how much does the UK contribute? About 1% of global emissions. Well, joining me now, Baroness Jenny Jones, Green Party peer. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Just in terms of this, many people are saying that obviously climate change is something that we talk about a great deal, that we have decided we want to get to net zero by 2030. The ban on petrol and diesel cars, which Michael Gove, we've just heard, is insisted, is going ahead. And yet we find that the wildfires in Rhodes and Corfu look increasingly likely they were arson. However, on the top of that, of course, the bush was very, very dry indeed because they have seen very high temperatures. How much of this is down to climate change?
Well, the whole point is that if arsonists clearly started the fires, but the conditions were made possible by climate change. And this is settled science, I'm afraid. 99.9% of scientists, climatologists worldwide actually do understand that climate change is happening. We humans have wrapped our precious little Earth in a blanket of pollution. And there are all sorts of things that are going to happen in the future that we can't even be sure about, simply because we have set processes that we can't predict anymore. So please don't say this is not settled science.
Well, the reason I say that is that I'm looking at two papers, one from the Global Climate Intelligence Group of 1,500 scientists saying the IPCC is wrong. Also, I've got another one from Challenging Net Zero with Science, written by emeritus professors as well. So it's not settled.
Oh, I'm afraid it is. I mean, that first one you mentioned, sorry, what was it? The global warming...
The Global Climate Intelligence Group, the World Climate Declaration, you'll know it as.
OK, not very intelligent. I suggest you put that one in the bin, because that is a tiny number of scientists that, I don't know where they come from, I don't know what their science is, but climatologists are very, very clear that we are doing this to our planet. And as I say,
OK, so hang on a minute, just 1 second. So let's say it is settled and there is climate change taking place, which is fine. But obviously the world has always... Well, don't do that, because this is what people around the country are actually saying, which is the world has always heated up and cooled down as well. The question is, how much of this is man-made? And the second question is, even if we get to net zero, the UK will contribute 1% of global emissions.
I'm afraid net zero isn't where we should be going. We should be going to real zero. And so we've got to take this much more seriously than any government in the UK is likely to over the next few years. And it is settled science. I suggest if you don't believe that, then there's not much point in my talking anymore, because quite honestly...
But lots of people around the country don't believe it.
Lots. A few. Most people, in fact, if you talk on doorsteps, I don't know how much you get out, but if you talk to people on doorsteps, they have started talking about climate change, and they are very concerned. This month is going to be the hottest month for 120,000 years. Now, that is something that...
For 120,000 years? Where did you get that from?
Well, I got it from scientists who have told me that. You have to understand that I'm a Green who has been saying this sort of thing for a very long time. The Green Party's been saying it for 50 years. If the Green Party had been listened to, then we would not be having the same cost of living crisis. For a start, you know, we'd be using more renewable energy. We'd have insulated houses.
But we wouldn't have had nuclear power, would we, under the Greens?
Well, can you keep to the point?
Well, that is the point. You're saying that...
Well, not really, because nuclear power is not sustainable, whereas...
Why?
Other forms of renewable energy are. And quite honestly, we are going to see a real increase in inequality in Britain. I mean, we've seen it over the past few years. Conservative government obviously damages society and thrashes out and is thoroughly incompetent at keeping society going. You were talking about the NHS earlier. If the NHS had been supported in the way that it has been over the past 13 years, of course we're going to end up with strikes. Of course we should pay doctors and medics and nurses and cleaners more. Of course we should. The NHS is one of those very precious things in British society that the Tory government has absolutely brought to its knees.
Well, that isn't fair. We've never put so much money, and I want to stay away from the NHS. Let's stay on the environment.
Well, you say that, but we've put a lot of money in because we're paying agency staff now to
We can talk about the training, we can talk about the number of doctors, but let's stick to climate.
All right, well, you stick to climate as well then. What I'm saying is we have done this to ourselves. And a lot of this, as I said, we have no idea where it's going. For example, we have the ocean is warming. Now that means that all sorts of fish are moving their territories. That means all sorts of ecosystems are being damaged. We are absolutely out of control as humans, and we are damaging our planet. And if we don't accept that, we face a very uncertain future.
Just in terms of that, though, for people in this country where they're paying all of these levies, these green levies, the price of energy pegged to the price of gas. Well, this is true. This is true.
Yeah, but it's what I've just said.
But if you let me finish, what is the point of burgeoning people with these costs in this country where you've got China and Russia and India building coal-fired power stations? It's a nonsense.
Oh, stop all the whataboutery. We have to make a move on our own. And other countries...
But we are.
Let me finish then. Other countries are doing their bit. It's just we have to do our bit. We could have been exporting green technology for the past 40 years, but we chose not to. We chose to close wind farms and things like that. We are not behaving as responsible global citizens. And as I said, if we'd had green policies before, we would have cheaper energy now. We would have insulated houses. We would not have houses falling off cliffs because we would not have built them there. We are facing a massive problem and we are being irresponsible.
Very good to talk to you, Baroness Jenny Jones, Green Party here. I'd also argue if we'd actually bothered to build some nuclear power stations, we wouldn't be in this mess either.